The Five Love Languages, a Different Perspective. Hi, I'm Kirby. I'm a specialist in trauma and attachment theory, and I shoot these videos every day to help people navigate through difficult stuff, dark times, and hopefully move up towards a life of freedom and joy and grounded security, confidence in themselves. Okay, so this video comes from some viewers that are asking this question. I think there's been 3 or 4 now. They're like, can you do a video on the 5 love languages? Well, that's a summary. I'll come back to that. So let's first talk about what is the 5 love languages. And this is by a book that was released in 1992 by, what's his name? Gary Chapman. And the premise of this book is that he's been seeing all these couples for many, many years. And what he's noticed over time is that a lot of the conflict that arises in these partnerships, usually marriages, is that one of them is trying to express their love for the other in a particular way, in a love language, right? And they're competent and fluent in this particular language. And these are not spoken languages, these are behavioral languages. Like, an example is acts of service, right? That I express my love for you by intentionally taking on a task that will be of service to you, my partner, us, the relationship, probably the greater family unit, and maybe the community. And for me, that is a true and natural expression of my desire to serve and to help and to tell you, partner, that this is something I care about and this is something I prioritize. But partner may not actually be fluent in that language. Partner may see acts of service and not interpret it as love, just like you might hear something in, Icelandic or Swahili and you don't understand what they're saying. You're just like, okay, I see that there's words coming out of your mouth, but I have no idea what those words mean. And so kind of in the same way, one partner does all these acts of service to say, hey, partner, I love you, I prioritize you, everything else. But partner doesn't speak that language. And so they don't understand the message. They don't get the message. And that's kind of the fundamental premise of the book, is that he outlines this idea that there's these kind of 5 key languages or behavioral patterns that he notices. And many conflicts come down to this miscommunication bit. It's a beautiful premise. And I know that when I was struggling in a marriage, that we definitely picked up that book and we both read the book all the way through, and which was kind of a rare thing for us. And we really kind of tried to internalize it and begin reshaping things into this concept of love languages, like reshaping our conflicts, getting a different perspective on our conflicts. It's just like, oh, okay, my ex-wife was in a position where acts of service was something that was modeled to her. And so that was something that was very important to her. And it showed, that's what she saw father do. And now she has the mapping inside her head that like father doing acts of service is support for the family, even if other things are not there. And so that's the way I'm going to interpret that you prioritize me, that you respect me, and that you love me. And that may not have been one of my love languages at that time. All right, so let's talk about what are the 5 love languages. First one, most people can remember, is words of affirmation, which is I am explicitly vocalizing words about you, partner, that say you're good, I like you, I affirm that you exist, I affirm that your emotions matter, I affirm that your lived experience matters to me, I validate you, I desire you, right? Verbally expressed, words of affirmation. Second one, acts of service, which we kind of already talked about. Yeah, I'm intentionally stepping into this thing to help you in the community. Third one, gifts, receiving gifts, giving and receiving gifts. And that's the one where it's like, maybe I don't say it so much. Maybe I don't do the action of service, But like, I show up, hey, here's a little ring, here's a little pendant, here's something, I saw this book. It's in this bookstore. I saw this book that reminded me of you. And so I just bought it, and here it is, and I'm giving it to you. It's not your birthday. It's not Christmas. It's not any special day. I'm just giving you this little gift to show you, to broadcast out to you that, like, I'm thinking of you. I prioritize you. I care about you. Quality time. So quality time is almost like understanding is almost the flippy bit in the sense that we spend time together at the cafe or restaurant or movie theater, and sure, we're together and maybe we're even doing the same activity, but if both of us are kind of checked out in our own worlds, like, this is one of the reasons why movies are kind of a rough one, not really recommended for developing quality connection, because you're sitting there both facing the same direction, observing some story, and then going through the emotional process or whatever as we witness the story, but we're not actually connected. I mean, we might as well just be separate people and, with no connection whatsoever. Or being in the cafe and both people are like scrolling on their phones. I literally see this almost every day. Entire families, really. Entire families will come in, sit down in a restaurant. This just happened 2 nights ago. And it's like mother, father, 2 kids. Both kids had tablets. The mother was doom scrolling Instagram all night long. And the father was sitting there just in silence, just observing as, blink, blink, blonk, blonk, whatever games the kids were playing. And then the mother is just scrolling, and every once in a while she sees a meme and she's like, oh, ha, 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 look at this one. And he looks and laughs, and she goes back into her world, and both kids are in their world. And then he's just sitting there. And I'm like, I don't know. Good luck with that. We'll see what happens in 15 years. So quality time is the opposite of that. Quality time is, I'm here with you, and you are actually my priority. And I'm going to take these distractions and put them away. I'm going to not focus on other things. I'm going to put down anything that is craving for my attention, because in this moment, my attention is focused on you, and it's by my choice. Sometimes you'll see people provoke a conflict when they're feeling disconnected, because if I can provoke a conflict, then your attention will be focused on me, and then I will get that feeling that I'm craving. And the 5th one is physical touch. Physical touch being the obvious, right? Skin to skin contact. I guess it doesn't have to be skin to skin, but we have a lot of evidence that suggests skin to skin is one of the best ways there is. So these are the 5 love languages, and I hear people discuss them all the time. And then these questions that came in from viewers and of my videos and the channel and stuff, most of them were like, can you do a video on how the love languages relate to avoidant, my avoidant partner? And it's like, which love language can I embrace most that will work or create connection or help my avoidant partner feel loved? And I guess there's people out there that are suggesting this idea, because I'm kind of reading between the lines from what the messages came to me. It sounds like they have witnessed some other person claiming to be an expert, which it's just the same. I'm just claiming to be an expert. You don't have to believe me. I'm just some random guy on the internet, right? So they've heard some guy claiming to be an expert, or woman, and this person said, oh, avoidance, people in avoidant attachment style are much more likely to have physical touch as their primary love language. And opinion of this guy, no, don't listen to any of that. That's so surface level grade school understanding of these things. I don't want to tear anybody down. It's just like, it's not helpful to get wrapped up in this simplistic view of things. Okay, so let's talk about love languages from an attachment point of view, from just the opinion of this random guy on the internet. Okay, that love languages can change over time. We see it usually we don't see it because we're not actually tracking anybody. But if you get into let's say, a discussion group of thousands of people, they're all about attachment styles, and they are kind of going through their personal journey together, you will see cases where they come into the group or discussion area, in this year, and they'll talk about like, oh, my primary love language is physical touch and quality time, 100%. I don't know how I could ever live without it, la, 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 la. And then in this group for 4, 5, 6 years, as this person goes through their personal journey with attachment, healing their attachment wounds, and then they will come back and say, wow, my love language used to be physical touch and quality time, and now it's much more in the realm of kind of acts of service and words of affirmation. And so this is self-reported, they take the test or whatever. And it's just like, okay, so we see these cases lots if we can track it over a long enough period of time. So over time, and observing this years ago, I started to be like, well, obviously this isn't fixed. And any given person in any given relationship is going to take the test or do this, whatever. I forget how you do it. I think there's a test in the book. And they're going to go through this process and they're going to be like, oh, I did this test and now it comes out with this result. And then they're like, this is a truth about me. Look, the book said so. And it's written by this expert. We see that all the time. And because someone gets an assessment or a test or whatever, and then they begin integrating into their story of their life, and oftentimes it'll be a story of their wounding, right? In the sense that like, oh, well, I'm a this, whatever the label is, and that explains why I get hurt by people like that. It can happen in lots of different domains, astrology and psychotherapy and la la la. But anyway, skipping to the meat of the matter. The meat of the matter is I 100% believe, just some rando on the internet, 100% believe that what we're calling love languages is really just a reflection of attachment wounds. And the void or lack that I have therein, that it's just like I had situations in my life, usually when I'm younger, when I was wrapped up in a physical embrace with someone, usually mother, and in that moment I felt safe. And I felt particularly safe because the chaos of my normal life around me when I was not being held felt chaotic and unsafe, right? So there's this kind of like differential thing happening that like I'm just a child running around the house, and then there's these two adults that are like both dysregulated all the time and frequently screaming at each other or whatever, or like throwing around shame bombs constantly. And it's just like, just navigating that space felt unseen, unheard, judged frequently, not good enough, like needing to constantly be on guard to protect myself from a big shame bomb or a physical attack or whatever, right? So the general aspect of my life feels very unsafe. But if there is a big, strong, powerful adult, which my brain has learned they've got more power than I do, and they take me into their arms or lap or whatever, and they just completely envelop me and smother me with connective energy and, expressions of love and everything else. It's like, oh God, I'm finally safe. Like, yeah, I remember there was one point in my life, it wasn't even that long ago, when I was kind of analyzing my own cravings for physical touch, believing that was a love language. And when I kind of really slowed it down and traced it backwards, I realized I'm like, oh, I can think of these memories, which are a little bit hazy, so they might be fabricated, but I can remember these moments being held by one adult caregiver. And in that time, that was basically the only time that I knew that I was completely safe from attack by a different adult figure. Attack being, criticism, condemnation, shame, sometimes, physical punishment and that kind of stuff. So it's just like there's this differential. I feel chaos and unsafety, and then here you pull me up and wrap me in your arms, and now I suddenly feel safe. Okay, well now I have very strong associations in my mind between physical touch and safety. And because I believe the primary goal, purpose, task of the largest portion of the brain, or the dominant portion of the brain, which is subconscious. Its one task and the one thing it's always pursuing is safety, so that we can ensure survival. It's how can I get this organism to survive until tomorrow? And the way I do that is by maintaining safety, monitoring safety, keeping close proximity to safety, making sure safety is within reach, making sure safety is fully accessible at all times, right? That's kind of the dominant craving pursuit system that's going on in the subconscious. And so now, with that living inside me, what happens in my conscious mind, as soon as there's someone around that is willing and available to give me physical touch that does not feel unsafe, I'm going to crave that. And I'm going to crave that more than anything else, unless I've got others, right? So now that suddenly explains physical touch as a love language. And then we can basically take that same model and apply it to all other 5. And let's say it's, words of affirmation. And in a moment when someone gives me words of affirmation, they are expressing delight, which is the 4th pillar of safe, healthy attachment. They're expressing delight at me, which means they're not criticizing me, right? In a world where I feel predominantly criticized, taken down, shamed, not good enough, or less than what I need to be, someone coming along and expressing delight suddenly feels like, like it's like I'm drowning in all this desperate clawing to be good enough to just not get assaulted with shame and blame and everything else. That's really what I'm trying to do. And yet, I can be in situations where I just feel like I'm drowning in not good enoughness, right? I need to get the right math score, and I need to, do this sport the right way and score the goals or perform or get an assist, or I need to show up with my friends a particular way, or I need to watch this show or do this homework or, exercise or whatever, right? Whatever my metric is for achieving the line, which is good enough, that pressure is ever present. And then someone comes along and they say, you did a good job. I really appreciate you. I really love you. This is what that says in that moment is you're good enough. You're desirable. You are wanted. I enjoy this. I enjoy you. And I'm prioritizing you over other things because I'm here with you telling you these words of affirmation. So again, differential, negative, positive. The positive one becomes this shooting star of good feelings. And so I crave it. And when it happens, it feels amazing. Acts of service, very similar. If you're sacrificing other things and putting in time and energy and everything else to be here to take care of me, and I see that, and I understand your situation well enough to know what you're sacrificing to be here to take care of me, and I have empathy for that, suddenly it's just wow, in this moment with mom or dad, I feel important. I feel prioritized. I feel, right? And now that one's got all of these have kind of the secondary writer in the sense that maybe dad was unable to express emotions in a clear or healthy way. He was emotionally unavailable. He was terrified of intimacy and vulnerability. And he is primarily controlling of his environment, probably because of his anxiety, right? Which avoidance, again, is always just a cover story for anxiety. Anxiety always lives under avoidance. And so here's dad who would assess as an avoidant, and he was definitely emotionally unavailable for me and mom. And so we're all going to agree that he would assess over here at the avoidant end of the spectrum. But from what we know from all the attachment research and anybody that works with these people, you realize that there's always anxiety under the surface. And the avoidant behavior patterns are just coping mechanisms to protect themselves from the feelings of anxiety that live there, right? Okay, so now here's dad. He's emotionally unavailable. He is not really able to express feelings or words of affirmation or express delight or any of that stuff. The only thing he really knows how to do is to do tasks and do the things that I'm supposed to do the things that everyone knows is what you're supposed to do if you're going to be a father and have children and, da 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 da, right? And so what is showing up there is that the only way that his particular subconscious mind and nervous system know how to express love or take care of another human being is to basically be in a structured, rational, service-oriented position. Now, if I'm a child around that and I don't have the words of affirmation or physical touch or any of that other stuff, then my fundamental craving for love is always looking for it. And then it sees this behavior that dad is doing and it begins to associate that with love. Oh, this is what love looks like. This is what being a father looks like. This is what being a loving man or loving partner looks like. And so that gets internalized and mapped inside me. And then that will be the way that I try to demonstrate love for my partner, but it's also the way that I'm going to hear my partner come at me with love. Because if I've never had words of affirmation and then suddenly my partner shows up with it, like we talked about earlier, I will very likely be craving it. So we have that angle, but then we also have, I've never had words of affirmation, so I actually don't have any experience or resilience to the degree of emotional intensity that happens when someone is expressing love for me with words. And so now I come up here with a new relationship and partner shows up with all this loving energy and all these words of affirmation. And I have this big upwelling of emotions and it is scary for me. And so I pull away. I like, right? Like, what's going on? Why are you so this? Why are you so clingy? Why are you saying all these things? Why are you telling me I'm beautiful? Why are you telling me I'm clever? Right? I've never had that before. What is this all about? What's the game here? Right? It can be suspicion. There can be avoidance of the upwelling of emotions or whatever. And then the safer thing is to back away from that and just be like, oh, okay, just do stuff for me. Just do acts of service. And that's going to be my primary love language. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm spinning around a little bit there. But these things definitely fit together. Attachment theory, at least as I understand it, can really comprehensively explain what's going on under the surface of these love languages. Now, does that mean love languages are wrong? No. Does that mean you should ignore them? No. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying from an attachment point of view, you look under the hood and you see this kind of mechanistic process by which the emotions and cravings and everything else are kind of arising in relationship to an ever-present seeking of safety compared with the wounds and the lessons about unsafety that are already in that nervous system. And so we put those two together and we can kind of see this pathway that this person gets to a point where acts of service is really the only thing they know, the only thing they know how to do, and the only thing they know how to receive, because all the others are too damn terrifying, right? What's another one? Quality time. Quality time is very similar in the sense that, like, if I've never had that modeled to me, and really the only thing that's been around me in my formative years are these people that are kind of emotionally avoidant or distant or unavailable because they're too terrified to step into their own, that place of vulnerability and emotional exposure, probably because they didn't get it modeled either. So if that's all I know, then sitting still with another human being and just basking in the presence and of connection and observation and welcomeness, that can be terrifying because it's new. It can be terrifying because it means I have to expose, right? I have to expose parts of myself that could get hurt. I have to open myself up for rejection. And I need to actually be curious and engaged with this other person and figure out who they are too, right? This is all complicated stuff to someone who's never had it modeled. So in that way, we can have someone who is very, very averse to quality time, but yet the same kind of core situation, if they've reached a point where they've overcome their fears about connection and they know the juicy, yummy, wonderful feelings that can come with it, they kind of cross over that and they say, now I understand what's so awesome about this. I never had it modeled to me and I have overcome my fears and now I crave it desperately. And so now that person is going to have quality time is like very, very high. Plus, quality time just is like a broadcast of I prioritize you. And from my point of view, three core cravings of the attachment system is wanted, chosen, and prioritized. And so if you're sitting here putting down the phone, stepping away from other distractions, stepping out of other opportunities in order to be here and prioritize me, you obviously want me and you're choosing this. So it's like, I feel wanted, I feel chosen, I feel prioritized. Quality time is very, very good at provoking that feeling. And that's why some people crave it. They have this large swaths of attachment void, emptiness. What are we saying there? They have a significant portion of their childhood where their attachment needs were not met in adequate measure. That's what we're saying. And if that is the case, they're not feeling wanted, chosen, and prioritized very often. And so you get into a point of being quality time. They're going to be like, oh my God, this is it. This feels so incredible. This feels so delicious. This is exactly the kind of thing that I want to have in my life. So that's the quality time one. What was the third one? It was receiving gifts, acts of service, words of affirmation. Yeah. I guess I didn't really talk about gifts. I guess I see gifts as similar to the quality time one, where gifts are a demonstration that you want me, you want this, you're choosing this. You are off living your own life, doing your own thing. I'm not there, which means I'm so important to you that your mind is spinning and spending time thinking about me even when I'm not around. And that feels like I'm important. That feels like I matter. That feels like I'm something very special to you. And then you go through and then you sacrifice, you're giving up your life energy and work to make money. And now you're spending that money on me when you could be spending on any number of other things. Boy, I feel prioritized. That's kind of the way I see it anyway. So if we go back to these questions that were asked by the viewers about like, what is the primary love language of an avoidant? I think the answer to that question is whatever they didn't get enough of that they're not terrified of. And that could be any of them. Now, if someone's done some kind of long-term, large-scale study, specifically focused on avoidance, I'm interested in that. I don't think that's been done yet. And of course, I would defer their expertise. But from what I've seen with the people that I've worked with that are at the avoidant end of the spectrum, or they manifest behaviors of the avoidant end of the spectrum, I haven't seen any trends. And of course, this is just in the model of these 5 love languages, right? So, one of the memes we started seeing, I don't know, 10 or 15 years after that book kind of hit mainstream, we started seeing these memes around, people would say, like being consistent is a love language, or, showing up in difficult conversations is a love language, right? They're basically memeing out this idea where they're trying to take other traits of what they consider healthy for a relationship. And they're taking these other traits and they're saying, elevate them to the point where it's like, oh, this is a love language. And it's like, there's not. In fact, I even heard, I think it was on a podcast one time, they're like, there's not 5 love languages. There's like 26 love languages. And here, let me tell them to you. And then, of course, that's just people atomizing stuff and breaking it down and creating lists so that you can use that rational, conscious part of the brain to go through this list and be like, oh, is this me? And it's like, yeah. And is this my partner? And it's no, and whatever, right? And all of those are just avoidant tactics of distraction. It's a way of distracting ourselves from getting very real into the emotions of the experience. That's the way I see it anyway. So like if I can go through lists and find out like which Hogwarts school Harry Potter character is me and which one's my partner, or which astrology sign and which sun rising, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like we go through all these lists of things, Enneagram and human design and everything else. All of those things are highly conceptual. And it allows the conscious rational part of the brain to basically become completely immersed in it. Just shot a video recently where I was talking about video games, and that games do is they give you this world where there is a set of rules. There's goals, there's rules, there's limitations, there's a massively intricate reward system. And by stepping into that, it basically just consumes my brain, the upper brain anyway. And when the conscious, rational upper brain gets all consumed like that, and burns up all the energy, there's no space to be in a place of present, witnessing, welcoming curiosity with my emotional body, my emotional experience. It's literally a way of checking out. And again, I don't want to dump on anybody, but in my experience, kind of delving into it myself, but then also coming out and observing others, is that any of the kind of psychological models or online tests or spiritual practices that kind of have this, I don't know, puzzle like, we got pathways like this and this thing connects to that, and there's these arrangements of these stuff, and we're going to measure the angles or the pipelines that connect this point to that point or whatever. Like all that conceptual stuff, like, is incredibly good. Like, who knows? It might all be real. I don't know. But I do observe that it's very, very good at checking out of the emotional presence. It consume the puzzling of the mystery is incredibly good at numbing us from our emotional experience. I don't actually have to look at any emotions. I don't have to face any emotions. I don't have to like process any emotions. I don't have to sit here with an uncertain future and contemplate that I am incredibly dissatisfied with my life. I can avoid all that by just getting into the puzzle. And honestly, again, I'm just some rando on the internet. You don't have to listen to me. When I look at the preponderance of conspiracy theories, that's what I see, right? Is that it's these bad actors and that thing and these things are connected and what blah da 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 da, right? And then the wild part is that some of it's probably true, right? Some aspect of it, but it doesn't really matter if it's true, because what's happening, what I see from the psychological point of view, is that you have immersed yourself. You can become completely engrossed and obsessed with figuring out this puzzle so that you can have the answer. And in the figuring out process, you check out of your own emotional experience. So, have you ever seen this movie called Beautiful Mind? I think it's with Russell Crowe. And anyway, it's about this kind of a biopic of a real guy that was really, really good at economic theory. And he had some stuff going on inside his mind that created sensations of people being there that weren't really, at least not by anybody else's observation. And then those people were asking him to basically take on the this task of uncovering this secret hidden plot. I think it was in the American government. I don't remember. But it was basically, so he gets this secret lair, which is, some fancy, side room on some university campus. And then he goes into this place and he's collecting all this data and he's mulling over all these documents and looking for various pieces and reading stuff. And then he hangs it on the wall and draws the lines between them and all that kind of stuff. Nowadays we frequently have the memes of the guy who's got a room full of paper clippings and lines connecting all the various stuff, right? That's such a trope. We literally see it in everything from, I don't know, all the way, I think we recently saw it in Arcane, that TV show, and then there's been many others, and there's the trope of the guy against the wall with the crazy eyes being like, this explains everything. So yeah, that's a thing. That's a thing that has become a trope and a meme because it's so recognizable. And it's so recognizable because so many people have either seen it or witnessed it or been there or whatever, right? This kind of wild obsession about getting into this meticulous detail of something. And in my opinion, we don't have any behaviors that don't have reason. Everything makes sense. And so we have to trace that backwards and say, what survival advantage could come from a person that gets into something like that? And, sure, we got this thing where it's like suspicion for power structures, dismantling the power structures. You always need someone that's kind of pushing against the status quo so that the status quo can grow and evolve. So that's an interesting angle. But there's this other angle that I see it. It's like all that could be true, but just the way that it is so, so good at numbing all emotional aspects of the system, and because they just become completely obsessed with solving the puzzle. And in some cases, not all, some cases, I see people in the spiritual, conscious world, whatever, they're dealing with something like human design or astrology or, Enneagrams or whatever else. And it's just like, that's what I see. I see the Russell Crowe Beautiful Mind guy, like drawing lines between all these various bits and just being like, I got to figure this out. Because if why? I want to figure this out so I can get predictability, so I can get safety, I can get understanding, right? So I see that as a quest for safety, and it just goes down this kind of road that's a little bit less traveled that, sometimes is going to have some kind of benefit from like an overall kind of cultural point of view, uncovering the secret conspiracies and all that kind of stuff. But I also see it as this like perfect numbing mechanism, this perfect way to avoid being present, avoid facing uncertainty, avoid the uncomfortable emotions that will arise inside us when we come face to face with the fact that the world we live in is pretty chaotic. Not everything makes sense. That justice doesn't really exist in nature. That sometimes bad things happen to good people. Sometimes good things happen to bad people, right? Fairness doesn't really exist in nature. And we have to come face to face with all that. And it creates a tremendous upwelling of difficult emotions, right? Why? Emotions are command directives. Emotions are a way to motivate us to move, to take action. And what's happening there is my subconscious is saying, if we can't predict the future, I can't keep us safe. This sucks. Change it. I don't want to be here. Do something to get away from this. That's the way I see it anyway. And so here's my subconscious generating all these negative emotions when I'm in the face of uncertainty, because it does not want to be in a place where survival might be at risk because we cannot predict the future. So it would rather use the powers of the conscious mind and its kind of modeling visualization abilities to invent a massive interconnected fabrication alternate reality that has predictability, even if there's bad actors and we're powerless. It would rather do that than sit in the face of the chaos. At least that's the way I see it. In my opinion, one of the best singular skills we can learn is how to stand in the face of big, uncomfortable emotions and maintain my emotional regulation, maintain my mind, maintain my values, be able to make tough decisions in the face of whatever this is, and especially when it comes to uncertainty. Can I stand in the face of uncertainty 3 seconds, 10 seconds, a minute? Build that skill, and you will quickly actually begin to notice that it applies everywhere. Having a discussion with your romantic partner, they're having some kind of emotional upheaval, and instead of being like, oh my God, I need to get certainty, I need to get safety, tell me, are we still connected? Are we still dating? Whatever. Just be like, no, I can let this play out. I do not need to control and manipulate my entire environment seeking security, predictability, and safety, because really it's kind of an illusion anyway. But like, I just don't need to, because it's just like, I'm okay. I have a base that I can return to, which is me, myself, and I. I have a place where I can maintain a certain degree of internal safety. And if you don't have that, then that's your job. Your job is to build that. That is your task, because it will benefit all domains of life. And so I can back away from trying to control other people, control environments, manipulate outcomes. I can retreat from all that. I can let it go. I can just be like, this is happening, and I don't know how it's going to turn out. I don't need to know how it turns out. I can just be present and stay integrous to myself and let this person do whatever it is they're going to do. And then we will keep every step of the way. We will evaluate. We will see where we want to go with this, right? Maybe we want to be closer together. Maybe we don't. I don't know. But for people, interestingly, for people that are kind of reading between the lines and they've been consuming a lot of my videos, they will be putting the pieces together here, drawing the lines between the dots, just like the Russell Crowe guy, that I'm doing the same thing. That this whole thing about attachment theory and getting under the hood and understanding the connection bits between childhood trauma and a seeking of safety and how this manifests in adult relationships and all that kind of stuff. This is just another manifestation of that same craving that we have for certainty and safety. And I'm aware of that. And it makes it very difficult sometimes to kind of be in the space generating, sharing my thoughts on this stuff, because I'm just like, I'm just another one of those guys that's drawing all the pieces together with some kind of intricate framework. Because of that, because I'm aware of that, and because I've got some concerns about getting lost in the distraction and the avoidance, I intentionally try to create external test cases where we are checking for progress to say, is this model that I'm using providing measurable benefit in this other person's life? So there's a kind of continuous checks and balances that I try to work into the system, or at least in the system that I use working with clients one-on-one, that there's this constant checking. And it's like we can have this whole great big connected with the threads and connecting different newspaper articles and all that other crap. And it's like, cool, but is it actually helping anything, or is it just providing a numbing agent for me? We have to keep checking. We have to keep validating that some kind of meaningful forward progress is being made, because it's very, very easy to just get in this point where you're sitting with a person talking about all the various things happening in life and connecting these pieces, and we stay up here in this rational mind space. And it's like, no, you have to use the rational mind space to get the framework, which is really just a hypothesis about what's actually going on. And then you now use that, and now you have to shift into an emotional presence and witness those emotions, facilitate them moving through the system, and then checking how you feel afterwards. And then in that process of emotional presence, you now come back and you compare it back against the larger kind of theoretical framework and say, is the experience that I just had in line with this theoretical framework that I'm practicing or witnessing or being taught? And if that's true, then say, okay, well, maybe we have a theme here. And then you keep doing that over and over and over again, because nobody has the answer. Nobody is completely right. Speaking of models and frameworks is by definition an abstraction of the real. And as soon as you step into the abstraction, you're stepping into the falsehood. It's just a tool you use to understand the real. So that's worth mentioning. All right. That was a lot of information. And I kind of like followed this string, just like the Russell Crowe. I followed the string between the love languages down into the attachment wounds and kind of coming back out to this sense of safety. And oddly enough, we got into conspiracy theories. So those connections are in my mind as a Russell Crowe type character that lives in the real world. And my fascination is not government conspiracies. It just happens to be attachment theory. So if my lines of thread and yarn resonate for you, fantastic. Hopefully it's helpful. And if it doesn't, that's okay. I'm okay with the uncertainty. So I wish you all the best. I believe in you. Peace.